Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, Haribo, Hare Krishna and welcome to everyone, and thank you for a very nice bhajan. So now we will have the usual Bhagavad Gita lecture, which will be given by Yadunandana Prabhu. So first we're reading from the Holy Scripture, Bhagavad Gita, and then Janardana Prabhu, he will talk about that. And he's been studying it for so many years, so he has very nice insights. So please listen attentively. Hare Krishna. And please everyone move forward as much as possible, because we will have people coming during the program. Also the men, please, as much as possible.
Vi synger lige endnu en sang. Også skal jeg med på kaj. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Jai Gopinda Vallabha Girivardhari Jai Gopinda Vallabha Girivardhari Gopinda Vallabha Girivardhari Jai Gopinda Vallabha Yadunandana So we will read in English, I guess, yes. And today is a lecture from the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And in the 7th chapters are many, many famous and wonderful verses. And today we will have number 14, which is a very well-known verse, a very important verse to understand. And I will start by reading the Sanskrit of the verse and then reading the translation of the Sanskrit, and then after that there is a commentary by our spiritual master, about 2 pages, that I will read for you and then try to speak a little bit about it for some time and see what happens where we head. So the verse goes like this. Daivihe Shaguramayi Mamamaya Duratija Mami Vaji Prapatyanti Mayamitam Tat. Oh, I forgot something. We have to chant one invocative mantra first. It goes like this. You should follow me. This is very important. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Now we can read. The verse is chapter 7, text 14, and it goes like this once more. Daivihe Shagunamayi Mamamaya Duracchaja Mame Vaji Prapadyante Maya Mitam Karantite. And the translation goes like this. This divine energy of mine, Krishna speaks, consisting of the 3 modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Srila Prabhupada comments. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has innumerable energies, and all these energies are divine. Although the living entities are part of his entities and are therefore divine, due to contact with material energy, their original superior power is covered. Being thus covered by material energy, one cannot possibly overcome its influence. As previously stated, both the material and spiritual natures, being emanations from the Supreme Personality of God, are eternal. The living entities belong to the eternal superior nature of the Lord, but due to contamination by the inferior nature, matter, their illusion is also eternal. The conditioned soul is therefore called Nitya Baddha, or eternally conditioned. No one can trace out the history of his becoming conditioned at a certain date in material history. Consequently, his release from the clutches, his release from the clutches of material nature is very difficult, even though that material nature is an inferior energy. Because material energy is ultimately conducted by the supreme will, which the living entity cannot overcome. Inferior material nature is defined herein as divine nature due to its divine connection and movement by the divine will. Being conducted by divine will, material nature, although inferior, acts so wonderfully in the construction and destruction of the cosmic manifestation. The Vedas confirm this as follows. Mayam tu prakritim vidyam mayanam tu maheshwaram. Quote. Although Maya, illusion, is false or temporary, the background of Maya is the supreme magician, the personality of God, who is Maheshwar, the supreme controller. Unquote. This is from Svetashvata Upanishad 410. Another meaning of guna is rope. It is to be understood that the conditioned soul is tightly tied by the ropes of illusion. A man bound by the hands and feet cannot free himself. He must be helped by a person who is unbound. Because the bound cannot help the bound. The rescuer must be liberated. Therefore, only Lord Krishna or his bona fide representative, the spiritual master, can release the conditioned soul. Without such superior help, one cannot be freed from the bondage of material nature. Devotional service or Krishna consciousness can help one gain such release. Krishna, being the Lord of illusory energy, can order this insurmountable energy to release the conditioned soul. He orders this release out of his costless mercy on the surrendered soul, and out of his parental affection for the living entity, who is originally a beloved son of the Lord. Therefore, surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord is the only means to get free from the clutches of the stringent material nature. The words Mam Eva are also significant. Mam means unto Krishna, Vishnu only, and not Brahma or Shiva. Although Brahma and Shiva are greatly elevated and are almost on the level of Vishnu, it is not possible for such incarnations of Rajagun, meaning passion, and Tamagun, meaning ignorance, to release the conditioned soul from the clutches of Maya. In other words, both Brahma and Shiva are also under the influence of Maya. Only Vishnu is the master of Maya, therefore he alone can give release to the conditioned soul. The Vedas, Svetashvata Upanishad confirm this in the phrase Tameva Viditva, or freedom is possible only by understanding Krishna. Even Lord Shiva affirms that liberation can be achieved only by the mercy of Vishnu. Lord Shiva says, Mukti Pradata Sarvesham Vishnu Eva Nasangshaya. There is no doubt that Vishnu is the deliverer of liberation for everyone. So, just to repeat the verse, Devi Hesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratya Mami Vaji Prapadyanti Mayam Itam Tarantiti. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Om Jnana Timanasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunilitam Yanatasma Shri Guru Namahamukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lankayat Hegiri Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinathanam Namo Vishmakaraya Krishna Prasthapati Stisa Sukhi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavari Paschachaki Chatarani. So, this purport that Prabhupada gives here to this verse starts off by saying that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has innumerable energies, and all these energies are divine. So, in the beginning of his introduction to the Bhagavad, he says also that the concept of God and the concept of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is different. Because when we mean Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we mean not only the ruler or the Supreme Father or the Supreme King, or we mean the source of all energies, the one from whom everything emanates, and in whom everything rests and exists forever. So the definition of the Lord, or of the Godhead, the highest God, is that he is the source of all energies. And as such, he, as being the source of all energies, is himself unchangeable. Meaning that by the emanation of all these energies, he himself is not changed. Ishavasya midam sarvam. Now, Om Purnamada Purnamidan Purnat Purnamudachate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Shishyate. The first mantra of the invocation, actually, it is, of the Ishupanishad, says that even though so many things are emanating from the Supreme Absolute Truth, the Supreme Absolute Truth itself does not become diminished. So the definition of God is that although so many things emanate from God, he himself is not changed. So that means you have one whole unit, and from that emanates energies in the form of the material world, spiritual world. Parasya Shakti Vividhaiva Shruyati Svabhaviki Jnana Balakriya Cha. These energies emanate from the Lord, but that does not mean that the Lord by that emanation becomes diminished or divided. According to some philosophical schools, which Prabhupada called Mayavad, the Lord becomes divided into many parts, meaning the living entities, by this influence of Maya. So that when the Lord has become divided, like you have a piece of paper and you tear it up into many parts, it is divided. The original piece is not there anymore. But this is not the case with the Supreme Absolute Truth, because in the case of the Supreme Absolute Truth, 1 minus 1 is still 1. In material mathematics, 1 minus 1 is 0. So if you take away, if you have this watch here and you take it away, now there is no watch. So that's the material conception. But in the spiritual conception, you take away the watch and it's still there. In a similar fashion. But with the Lord, if He expands Himself into a copy of Himself, like expanding Himself to the creator of the material world, Mahavishnu, or the different Vishnus in the different universes, that does not mean that Krishna, the original Lord Himself, has become diminished in any way by that expansion. So that means that even though so many energies emanate from the Lord, He Himself retains His full personality and existence. So it's not like, it's a bit like the sun. We see the sun going up every morning and distributing its heat and light. And it has been doing that for 3.5 billion years, I think, according to modern science. And then after another few billion years, it will turn into a red giant and a white dwarf and a black hole, and then it collapse into nothingness. That's what the theory is, and then disappear into nothingness because it's used up all its energies by this so-called fusion. But so the sun is not eternal. It has its lifespan, but in a somewhat similar way, we see the sun as being always distributing heat and light, and it's always still there, even though it's not eternal. But Krishna is actually eternal. He distributes His energies everywhere into the spiritual existence, like the Goloka Vrindavan, His own abode, where He enjoys His pastimes, where He's intimate with His intimate devotees, as shown 5,000 years ago here on earth in Vrindavan. And He expands Himself into the different Vaikuntha lokas. He expands Himself into the Kailas Dham, the Sadashiva Dham. He expands Himself into Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is actually Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna. When He voluntarily sets Himself into contact with the material energy, then He becomes Lord Shiva. Or as Srila Prabhupada writes, Krishna never contacts the material energy, but when He does, He becomes Lord Shiva. That's a wonderful Achincha Veda Veda Tattva statement, oneness and difference simultaneously. And so the point being that the Lord is above, Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is above any exhaustion, fatigue, or He is not subject to any material diminishment. And so He is the Lord of all energies. And in this verse He's talking about the material part of His energy. Actually, Krishna has only one energy, but for our understanding we divide it material and spiritual. For us, because we have this desire, we are also emanations of the Lord. I explained that, I think, last time, or many times, that the living entity is as eternal as the Lord. The Lord exists in His eternal form. His form is not material. We are talking about a form. We say that man was created in the image of God, and there is some truth to that, because the original form of the Lord is human-like. But of course, with much more beauty and perfection. But Lord's original form is human-like, therefore the human body is a reminder of our divine nature. And but because the eternal sparks of consciousness that have emanated from the Lord are emanations from the Lord that are us, and still the Lord is not changed by that, but because we have this, the Lord expands Himself into the spiritual energy in form of the living entities, just like the sun has its rays that can be divided into photons, little particles of light. So the Lord has His emanation called the Jiva Shakti or Tatastha Shakti, which is His marginal energy. His internal energy is expanded into different Vishnu Murtis. The Lord has many forms. They are still the same. But He also expands into the small Jivas, who are atomic in size, comparing them to the sun's photons. We can compare them to the sun, which is huge, and the photons, which are small, but all of it is light. So the little Jivas, they're also light, they're spiritual light, they're eternal, and they are existing in a state of eternal choice. The Jiva living entity is eternally an individual spark of consciousness and has the freedom of the Lord, Swarat, independence. The Lord is independent, and the Jiva, as being part and parcel of the Lord, as having a reflection of the Lord's personality, also has the tendency or the possibility of wanting to become independent also of the Lord. So when the Jiva somehow desires to become independent of the subordination to the Lord, which is his natural constitution, just as the sun's rays naturally are part of the sun, if one of the sun's molecules decided not to be part of the sun, it would lose its shining effect. Just like if a spark in a fire falls out of the fire, then it just becomes a grey little speck on the ground without any shining capacity. But if you put it back into the fire, it regains its fiery quality. So as persons, we are persons. A photon is not a person, it's just a physical phenomenon. But a jiva, the sparks of the Lord, are as much persons as are the Lord. In the ultimate issue, everything is personal, not impersonal. So when that person makes that choice, person means you can make a choice. You can want this or you can want that. So when the jiva, the soul, makes that choice, I want to be as independent as the Lord. He is in a mad condition, actually, in a condition of insanity, Srila Prabhupada says, because it is not possible for the part and parcel of the complete whole not to be a part of that complete whole anymore. So when that jiva, that rare jiva soul, wants to become independent and dominate the material nature, just that Krishna dominates naturally the material nature, it is his energy. He just stated that, his divine energy. So when the jiva, in imitation of the Lord's desire, wants to dominate or lord it over material nature, that impossible desire makes the Lord create the illusion that it is possible. And so the Lord creates this material energy to accommodate that desire from the jiva to exist in an independent state. And thus, in order for that to function, the Lord creates a world in which our actions have a result. Karma. When we act outside of the harmony of the complete whole, we have to take responsibility for our own actions. So, I do something, I get something back. I make some work, I get some money. I throw a stone through the window, it breaks. I have to pay. And so on and so forth. Our action has a consequence in this material consciousness. And when the jiva is being put into that material illusion of being the dominator of the material energy, he is being first of all, his original consciousness, his original feeling of I am a part and servant of the Lord, of the complete whole, has to be completely covered for that illusion, for that illusion to become effective, to take effect. Then we cannot longer understand that we are connected to the Lord through service. Then we have to think that we are this body. And that illusion is so strong that it cannot possibly be overcome by the faculties that are given to us by Krishna as in form of the material nature, in form of mind and senses and intelligence and ego. These are all made of the material energy, and as such cannot be used to get released from the material energy. Meaning that by something material, which is our senses, our mind, intelligence, brain, all these are made of grain, matter and different forms of matter, you cannot understand spirit by means of matter. And since all our faculties in this material world are material, we cannot possibly understand spirit with the material senses. So, what to do? So one has to purify oneself from that illusion. And Krishna says, it is very, very difficult to overcome that illusion. He said it's impossible. Once you're in material nature, you're identifying with this body. I'm Danish, I'm Indian, I'm this, I'm that. And this illusion is so strong that without having contact with somebody who is released from that illusion, it is impossible to get released. In the previous ages, yes, there were brave souls who could perform yoga for many thousands of years, and gradually, by very severe austerity, by really negating the material type of existence, you can gradually rise to the platform of samadhi and then begin devotional service. But since that is not possible in Kali Yuga, where the lifespan of the human has been reduced to about 100 years, in previous ages it is stated, like before 5,000 years ago, the lifespan of the human was about 1,000 years, approximately. You can see in the beginning of the Bible also, people they used to live for 600, 700, 800, 900 years. And before that, you go many thousands years back, people used to live for 10,000 of years. And in the Satya, the first age, the human could actually live up to 100,000 years and perform a meditation for a great part of those years. I think that was it Valmiki? No. Somebody who Prabhupada used to mention, who meditated for 60,000 years to become perfect.